Continuing on, discussing Sukkot. We've talked about the idea of 7 days representing history and the 8th day representing eternity. Let's talk about circumcision a little bit. Circumcision is to be done on the 8th day, and this is mentioned in Genesis 17:10 through 14, where circumcision is given to Abraham, and he says that the babies on the 8th day are supposed to be circumcised. And so circumcision is the removal of a piece of flesh. And the flesh refers to our sinful nature. So fixing our sinful nature is done by history. History, all of the experiences that we have, should get those of us who are going to stay with God to understand emotionally that sin is a bad thing, that sin is something we want to avoid. So that when we get into eternity, we're not going to look back and say, oh, I wish I had the leeks and garlics of Egypt. No, we're not going to do that anymore, because history is going to wash it out of us completely. And circumcision is depicting that idea that we're going to get rid of our sinful nature completely by history, and so that when we're in eternity, we will not have that problem. Circumcision is also mentioned in Deuteronomy 10, 16 through 22, and chapter 30, verse 6. Let's turn to those. Okay, Deuteronomy 10, verse 16. Therefore circumcise the foreskin of your heart and be stiff-necked no longer. For the Lord your God is a God of gods and the Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality nor takes a bribe. He administers justice for the fatherless and the widow, and loves the stranger, giving him food and clothing. Therefore love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall fear the Lord your God, you shall serve him, and to him you shall hold fast and take oaths in his name. He is your praise, he is your God, who has done for you these great and awesome things which your eyes have seen. Your fathers went down to Egypt with 70 persons, and now the Lord your God has made you as the stars of heaven in multitude. Now let's jump over to chapter 30, verse 6. And the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. In other words, circumcision of the heart talks about loving God and dwelling with him. So this is what Sukkot is about. Sukkot is about really enjoying the presence of God. And and that is the real key to removing your sinful tendency. If you get your pleasure from sin, then you're going to have a tendency to go towards sin. But if you get your pleasure from being with God, then you're going to have a tendency towards righteousness, because you have to have righteousness in order to be in God's presence. And so circumcision is a part of the symbology of this idea of being a 7-day holiday that lasts for 8 days. Let's talk about Yeshua. Now, Yeshua was born and he was circumcised on the 8th day. Okay, so circumcision and Sukkot are connected. And Yeshua, you know, he did a lot of the stuff that he did on holidays. This is a clue to me that Yeshua was born on the first day of Sukkot, and he was circumcised on the 8th day of Sukkot. We know that Yeshua was not born in the wintertime. He was able to live in the area for the animals. Why? Because the animals were out in the field. Well, the animals wouldn't be out in the field if it was wintertime. That place would be full if it was wintertime. So, and scholars generally recognize that fact, which means that Yeshua was not born on Christmas Day. The other issue about Christmas Day, of course, is the fact that it is based on the 25th of Kislev, which later on came into the Roman calendar as the 25th of December. The 25th of Kislev, which is also the same day that you have the Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah, is based on the holiday of Baal. Okay, big holiday. Prior to Hanukkah, prior to Yeshua, was Baal's birthday. Baal is the son of the father and the mother god, the mother being Ishtar. Okay, so which is where we get Easter. So Christmas and Easter were big holidays way back. They are Baal's birthday and the day that Ishtar resurrected Baal after he was killed. Why all of this? Well, Satan is trying to counterfeit everything that God has. Okay? But what does winter symbolize? Winter symbolizes a time when the sun is weakest. Okay? So the 25th of Kislev is the winter solstice. It's the time when the sun is at its weakest point. And that is the time when Satan is at his biggest. Okay, so winter is talking about the idea of Satan being big. And Baal, by the way, is also the sun god. And so the winter solstice is the day when the sun starts returning to us. Okay, so this is why Baal's birthday is a big deal. But you don't see that holiday in the Torah. Okay, what you do see in the Torah is Sukkot. And Sukkot is a 7-day holiday that lasts for 8 days, and which is connected to circumcision. And so, anyway, the point that I'm making is that we should not be celebrating the birth of Yeshua at Christmas time. We should be celebrating the birth of Yeshua at Sukkot. Now, one of the traditions that we see at Christmas time is caroling, right? Where they go out and they sing about Jesus. Well, I am proposing that we do the same thing at Sukkot, that we should go caroling, okay, and sing songs about the birth of Yeshua on that holiday. And that's why in the music book, that we use. I've got some very simple songs at the beginning of the thing. Those are there because they are short and simple songs for the purpose of memorizing those songs so that you can go out and carol and sing songs when you're walking. Why is that important? Well, for evangelism, obviously. The other side of that coin is when you get persecuted and get thrown in jail, as we read in the book of Acts, they sang songs. Well, how could they do that unless they had them memorized, right? So memorizing some very simple songs out of the front of that book is a good thing for us to be able to do, be able to sing songs when we don't have our songbook with us. Okay, so anyway, the symbolism of the holiday is referring to getting rid of the old sin nature so that we can dwell with God. So the trumpets is talking about gathering. That's where God comes and he gets us. Yom Kippur is judgment, where we get rid of the sins. And Tabernacles, Sukkot, is talking about the idea of dwelling with God, which is the reward that we get from living righteously. We are able to live with God consistently, and we do that through his Spirit. Today we will do that through his Spirit and through him as King and High Priest in the millennium, and we will do that in some way beyond our imagination in eternity on the 8th day of history. Okay, so that gives you the basic rundown of Sukkot. Again, all this information is in Yeshua's Path, Volume 3, for your reference. And so let's discuss how we want to do this thing when we get together.